say the school's name?
Oneonta, the city of hills.
Or Wisconsin.
What?
Wisconsin also has.
Really weird names.
Oh, okay. I thought you also meant like, oh, Wisconsin also has an Oneonta, and I was like, wow, indigenous language traveling across.
Boston, they just cut out every single tons of consonants out.
Okay.
Booster.
That's what you guys must all be vampires.
Not that I know of. Are vampires self-aware? May not even be the narrator. You know, in the keynote, like they were saying, they'd be like, "Oh, we're gonna make you feel old." I'm like, no, I don't feel old. I feel like painfully like a baby. And my entry point into this comes so far after. You know, it's like, oh, what were you doing with WordPress in 2003? For how we got into that, which means we have different arguments to make to our administrators. And we have different battles that we have to do. And I don't know if that is helpful for anyone else, but that is my hope, is that by thinking about how we are trying to build capacity in a very grassroots way, trying to make the argument that the digital infrastructure does indeed matter and that open source can be a viable, effective, and the solution we need in some cases, we're just doing it almost backwards from how every other institution that seems to be here and every other person that seems to be talking about it fell into it. You know, so back when I was still in college, the SUNY community colleges were building infrastructure around open education and OER. And that was also a grassroots initiative that started at the community college level because they were feeling the pinch, and their students, more correctly, were feeling the pinch of the textbook prices before it came to institutions like Oneonta, before it came to institutions like our four-year doctoral granting universities. And in there, they're working, at the speed of SUNY, trying to make change, which is just slightly faster than the speed of smell, using these institutions that we have built inside that can both be wonderful, powerful arms to look at OER in 2016 and to look at OER in 2016. And based on their recommendations, they established an OER center on one of our campuses. That before they had any money. And the next year, in 2017, after the hiring of the executive director, all of a sudden the state legislature asked and gave us $4 million every single year to support OER. And that's so backwards because the story, as I was told of it, is CUNY asked for the money. CUNY was told, hey, it's time to do a big ask on OER. And so their big ask was $4 million, $1 million a year for 4 years. That was their big ask. And the legislature came back and said, we'd actually like to give you $8 million, $4 million to CUNY, $4 million to SUNY, and we would like you to do your OER initiative. And now all of a sudden, all of this infrastructure towards open, specifically focused on the open content and reducing textbook costs, now we have people like me joining the conversation. Because in 2018, I was hired, right? This is all before I was even, at a SUNY campus. Then you have people like me who are clueless, who don't have a background in open, and all of a sudden we're like, we have to spend $4 million a year to make an OER initiative, and we need to show results instantly, or else the legislature's not going to keep renewing us, because they have made us no promises that $4 million is coming next year. Where CUNY asked for like $1 million a year for 4 years, to spread it out. They're like, nope, $4 million this year. We'll see how you do and if you can get renewed. Because that's how the New York State legislature works. And so because of that, SUNY adopted an approach that was very much outsourcing its OER needs to an external company. And that's the landscape that we go in. This is just, showing the OER initiative, the Open Educational Resources Task Force. That's in 2016. This Fact 2 group, it's helpful in establishing the SUNY OER Services, who are this scrappy bunch of creators and digital people. Like, this was a really exciting time in SUNY, but we were just not prepared to do it at the enterprise level. And so, like, here's, 2019, like, I was good friends with the previous director of operation at SUNY OER Services. He was like a mentor to me. Mike Daly, I really still appreciate his opinions and what 4 months of writing and rewriting to get this through the SUNY System office of a little press release. Everybody has to sign off and wants to change those. But we did it through partnership. We outsourced to Lumen a lot of that ability, which was instantly successful. We could not have achieved the scale that we did without Lumen. And I have this complicated relationship with Lumen that we could spend half an hour on all in itself. And I believe in their mission. I believe in what they're doing, and I've helped them do it. If you squint really hard at this paragraph that I've got on the board right now where it says, under the agreement, we'll collaborate to fill curricular gaps that there are right now in creating materials for Spanish 1 and 2, with SUNY professors providing the content experience and Lumen the technical support. If you squint real hard, you can see Ed Beck was the project manager with 4 SUNY Oneonta faculty members writing a Foundations to Spanish textbook, 1 and 2, built on a... And so we think that we've saved like $4.5 or $5 million from that, just that one project. And this is something I'm intensely proud of. But I'm also skeptical of it because we relied so deeply on that outside group. We relied so deeply, and I've always been advocating for, if we do this and we don't change and learn ourselves and transfer some of their knowledge that we needed them to start up, if we don't learn something from them to be able to stand on our own without a vendor, then this whole experiment has been a failure. So at the same time that I'm working so hard with this project, which, I mean, they gave me like a budget of like $100,000 to manage for that project. We were able to give 35 directly to the faculty members. We were able to have a dedicated person at Lumen who worked directly with us and did all the digital assets. When my faculty wrote a script, some of the things went to sleep, sorry. When my faculty wrote a script, they then hired voice actors. They ensured that I had someone with a Spanish accent and someone with a South American accent. They were a value add to that project, and that's why I never say anything terribly bad about Lumen. Lumen added value to that project in ways that I could not have achieved it without them, right? So people want to hate a for-profit corporation that participates in the OER space. I'm like, do it better than them then. If you can do it better than them, they narrow their vision. They're only ever going to work on 100 and 200 level courses because that's the ones that they can scale across the entire United States to every community college. They're upfront about their vision. So use them for what they're good at and don't pretend they're the only way to do things. So at the same time that I'm playing the bugle and dancing the Lumen dance, I'm also writing other grants. And in 2019, we also established a system for open educational practice in SUNY, and that was us hiring Reclaim Hosting to provide us hosting, and was like, hey, there's an older tradition of open that I really want you to think about, where we weren't so focused on the license, but we were focused on, is it public? Is it downloadable? Is it built on open source software? Remember this conversation was happening in 2019. She was like, what's more open, Twitter or the systems that we're using? And she was advocating for the use of Twitter in the classroom and the use of Twitter in other places because it connected us and could share us. 4 years later, we tried to do a conference to try to bring all the people who were thinking this type of way to our campus. We had about 80 people register and about 100 more online from across the SUNY system. It was a good time. Taylor was there.
It was a good time.
It was a good time. But again, I'm making this argument to the system. Come in. Let me invite you in. The theme is open and public. Let's talk about our open infrastructure that we can use. Let's talk about what it means when we attach an open license to and when we don't, and we just make things open access, but not necessarily OER. And I'm trying to make the argument that maybe that's okay. You know, like the CC BY license is not the mark of quality that we need to judge our entire self-worth about. And again, I'm making that argument. Project-based learning, collaborative assignments, public-facing scholarship, ePortfolios, the same things that I was, putting forward the mission of my institution. That entire conference was an argument that this was worth collaborating and engaging on. And then this is my favorite slide that I have for you. Because that's the community we're trying to build, right? If we're talking about building system capacity, like, it's about the community. And every single person on this list is like a digital badass who was doing this stuff before I thought about doing it. And we get to go and play in these sandboxes together. We need to do better in SUNY about picking better colors, because too many of us use the same blue, but those are actually each institution's branded color. And so I'm sorry that Geneseo uses basically the same blue as SUNY Empire State or SUNY Polytechnic, but those are all different institutions in different places they represent. And it's awesome, and it's not enough, because we're 64 campuses, not 15, right? So we're trying to build this system capacity. We're trying to make this argument that this is worth doing. And I try to be very honest when I speak about this, because when we fail, we wanted to keep going. We submitted another grant. Let's talk about micro-credentials. Let's talk about getting students together, teaching them these skills, and then getting them together at the second SUNY Digital Learning Conference. It didn't fly. It didn't get past the first round of evaluations. And there were a couple different reasons for that, but talking to the people in SUNY, they said, you didn't make your case. This sounded like 2003 technology. This sounded like computer science class from the 2000s. Why? You didn't tell me why I should care about HTML, CSS, structured documents, accessibility. This morning, RSS got applause when somebody said it. That is not the audience we're playing to when we're trying to build system capacity. And so I have to reframe, I have to pivot, we have to make a different argument if we are going to keep moving forward. And I'm trying to learn about what we need to do. I'm throwing around things in my head. The first server you build is not going to be a Dockerized auto-scaling thing. There's value in setting up something in a LAMP environment on shared hosting that is transferable. I think we have to always be cognizant and aware of who our ed tech heroes are. And this is so embarrassing to be giving this talk and having the people who are in the room be in the room. Some of my digital heroes are at CUNY, with what they do with the Digital Humanities Research Institutes and the way they create a zero entry into incredibly complex things and say, you know what, let's spend 3 hours on the command line. If it takes you 3 hours to learn the command line and folder structure, let's do that first. And then by the end of the week, let's analyze a text with Python. And let's map that road. And that's the approach I want to take with the next round of capacity building in SUNY, is invitations in that start at that zero entry point, that don't have to start with a fully formed digital humanities project, but allow you to play around and learn the skills in a way that you can then support others. Amy's been working with that group for a long time. And part of the capacity building is learning from each other and being willing to be that student. And that's one of the things that I want to do better, and also simultaneously train admins along as I'm learning to also be the trainers, because there's no way I'm supporting a faculty member at SUNY blah, 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 right? SUNY Oneonta is my campus. I don't work for the SUNY system. I work for SUNY Oneonta. But there's so much we can learn from each other if we're building this the right way and doing the capacity building. The new thing that I'm stealing, is I'm really paying attention to the conversation on open science, and I'm stealing their arguments, and I'm stealing the way they present themselves, because when we look at the arguments on for open science right now, it's like, yeah, the content's open. Yeah, us going with the way we're presenting ourselves as an argument. Because I think whatever we do is an argument. Everything we've done in our capacity building has been an argument about this is the way that we can work as a system and we can make great learning experiences for our students. Part of the argument to me now has to include the infrastructure on equal standing with the content and with the way we are communicating with each other. And that's all I have. That's my storytelling of SUNY's digital journey and what we've done so far, what we've failed at, what we're getting back up and trying to do better the next time. Because we will get it going, Amy. We will get that student approach going. If I have to kneecap every single one of the readers on that on that committee, we are recording and streaming. Do you have anything to tell me? What should I know about this? What should I learn? Or questions. You can ask me a question too. I'll tell you the honest answer as far as close as I can.
This is great. Thank you for the overview of the challenge, sharing the challenge of working both within a campus and in a large.
You don't know anything about that, right?
Connected, and it's connected in many wrong ways, and not enough right ways. But I'm curious what, it seems like the inroad into open practices, right? I agree completely with the mission of building capacity and pushing open beyond just licensing towards transformational, institutional change. Feels like that the main pathway for that is curriculum. Right? And getting faculty to experiment and to build on those experiments, and then proselytize behind those experiments. So what kinds of curricular footholds have you gotten at Oneonta, and what curricular footholds do you see that make a similar move throughout the SUNY system that you can adapt?
Yeah, I get to work with the most amazing faculty, and it's really awesome. I'm going to show you an Omeka site that has been building for a really long time. It's called the CGP Community Stories. CGP stands for our Cooperstown Graduate Program in Museum. They've been collecting oral history for about 50 years, and about the last 20, they've been putting them online. So they predates me, of course, but the idea that this can be an effective part of your classroom process to build collections. And these are not openly licensed because the person who's building them has a deep distrust of putting an open license on an oral history, but thinks that it's very powerful to be public, but just thinks there's other considerations. But to go ahead and build that on open infrastructure and to build that with a public viewpoint, that's a curricular inroad that we can make. And you know, this project's changed a lot from its beginning. I mean, at the very beginning, the files were just too big, so we were teaching students how to FTP in the server so to get the oral histories on there. You know, we changed those rules now so that we're able to do it from the user interface. But I mean, those are the types of things, is like, how can we create small but meaningful things that, you know, small but meaningful things that can create student engagement and sharing. This is something that's going on right now, and I think we're out of time, so this will be the last thing I say. In a literacy class in our education program, students are sharing the books that they're reading from diverse viewpoints. Just a really simple concept built on WordPress. This whole thing was just, the whole goal was to just make it functional right now, and we'll keep building it out. And we can make things that are really cool and have value beyond that of just creating it, have value for someone else to be able to come through and do that. And that's where I want to live, and that's where I'm playing.
I do this almost the same thing in Matt Amherst. May I have your visiting?
Thank you.
I do this almost the same thing in Matt Amherst. May I have your visiting card? So in the future, we can.
I am.
Or your.
You said you didn't want a picture-in-picture. You just wanted HDMI output.
Yeah, I mean, you could start.
Where it was like, are you gonna like back and forth, like L?
Do I need anything? I should be good. I need you to behave yourself. That's all. That's all.